Today we are discussing retrograde Mercury. So one of my clients, their child has retrograde Mercury in their birth chart. And between talking to the parent, between talking with the kid themselves, they're like late teenager. And we were talking about how the challenge of putting their thoughts, putting the inner sensations, emotions that they experience when they're thinking, putting that into words that other people can understand. The challenge of doing that is their communicative gift, is the gift of communication that they have. And so when they view things, they view them through a different lens, or they view them in a different way. Mercury itself, the planet Mercury, is intellect, information. It's how we express ourselves. It's how we share information. So that's writing, speaking, presenting, organizing information, creating lines of logic, organizing our thoughts, and basically everything to do with how we think through and analyze information. That's what Mercury deals with. Retrograde energy is all about revisiting, reevaluating patterns, habits. It's a second opportunity to see something, dig into something. It's a very intense energy. It's very internal energy. So instead of the energy moving outward, it's intense inward. So introspective, mental focus. That's where all the thoughts, these patterns, these habits, these inner thought patterns and habits. It's a very retrogrades for all planets signify karmic lessons to be learned. And so you are going to, if you have the retrograde energy yourself, or if your child, someone in your family has that retrograde energy, they are going to be forced to repeat or review how things happen in whatever area of life that is. So based on the house that the planet sits in dictates what area of life that has control over or has domain in, right? And so the first house is our personality, it's our physical appearance, our body, our vitality, our personal identity. Second house is like material possessions, income. Third house is communication, debating, early education, learning. Fourth house is our inner safety, our home, our genetic lineage, our historical connection to the ancestors. It's like our ancestors. That's the word I was looking for. Fifth house, fun, romance, pleasure, inner child type stuff. Sixth house is daily routine, habits, being of service to other people. Seventh house is our relationships with others, our relationship with the outside world. Eighth house, inner world, death, transformation, rebirth, joint finances, taxes, loans, all of that type of stuff. 9, the guru, the teacher, higher education, learning our beliefs, ethics, morals. 10th is our career, mastery, achievement of something in a public domain. 11th house, goals, friends, aspirations, humanitarian things. 12th house is everything that's hidden, secrets, self-sacrifice, seclusion, loneliness, retirement, sleep, escapism, all of that type of thing. So depending on what house the retrograde energy is what area of your life you are going to have these karmic lessons keep showing up over and over and over again until you demonstrate to the universe that you have learned your lesson by changing your actions. Same condition, meaning you're presented with a very similar experience and you respond in a different way. Same conditions, new action, by definition, you have learned. When you do that over and over again, you've given the universe enough inputs to demonstrate that you have learned your lesson. You can now move on to the next thing. You don't have that same lesson being examined over and over and over again. And if you have retrograde energy, you are going to get that lesson presented over and over and over again. It's just how quickly can you move on to the next one? And then when you get that next one, it's going to take you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times of being presented the same conditions. How do you respond? Same conditions, new action, same conditions, same action. And you're going to stay in that wheel until you move on to the next one. And so that creates a delay because you have to go through the lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, depending on how many times you have to go through the experience until you unlock the next one. You will have some delay there. There's trade-offs to everything. So what that delay does is creates more power and strength on the other side because it required working through confusion, required perseverance, persistence, reworking your beliefs in order to now move in the same conditions, new behaviors. And so once you do get over that obstacle, get over that barrier, the retrograde energy gives immense strength and power. Okay? And so my client, by the way, this is episode number 73 of Real Occult, where we apply numerology and astrology to the material world. The astrology that we utilize is Vedic astrology, Chinese astrology, and then we just do a little dash of Western astrology just to get the inner emotions and see how that's going to play out. And so the difference between the two, Vedic astrology is based on as close to possible the planet's actual position in the sky, the actual layouts of the constellations in the sky, whereas Western astrology is based on the equinoxes as their 0 point. And so in my experience, a lot of people find the Western deals with the inner world, the emotions, a little bit softer. Vedic is a lot more hard truths, deals with the timing, deals with the actual evolution and change of your external circumstances, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. And so if you didn't know, we have a free online community, school.com/real occult, which is where this client is from, this family of clients. We help parents improve their child's spiritual foundation in order to prepare them for multi-generational wealth and success. And so my day job during the day outside of the community is I run a before school, after school program. We have 150 some families in there. So we're working with 30 kids per morning. And then in the afternoons, we have 70 to 80 kids we see Monday through Friday. And so I'm dealing with families and kids all day long. We're just help parents prepare their children for success. And numerology, our specialized multi-layered numerology and astrology system is the way we do that. If you're interested, school.com/real occult, completely free at the moment. It's probably going to be going more high ticket, like $6,000 a year, $6,000 a year in there, somewhere in there. But for now, it's still free. So if you're hearing this now, congratulations. You might be able to still get it for free. If you're listening to this in the future, depending on how far in the future, it might be $6,000. It might not. It depends on how everything unfolds. Back to what we were talking about. So the Mercury retrograde, because Mercury deals with information, communication, expressing ourselves to others, the revisiting the retrograde action, that karmic lesson, is creating confusion. So either the person and this is what happened with my client, is the parent didn't understand why the kid would get so upset and so angry when they didn't know what they were talking about. Meanwhile, the kid himself is getting more so irritated that he can't put the thoughts in his head together for someone else to understand what he's trying to say, what he's trying to communicate. And so we've worked with autistic kids, and learning all of the sign languages, like all of us, whether we speak English, different language, sign language, special needs, we all have these sensations in our body, and then we need to communicate that to someone else. And so the words we use are simply the vehicles we use to get that message to the other person, because they'll never experience life in our body, just like we'll never experience life in someone else's body during this lifetime. And so someone else is trying to communicate to us a message that they're feeling, and then we understand what they're saying. We try to express to other people what we're feeling so that they understand where we're coming from. And we have all of our own lived experiences building up to this point to give us the undercurrent to create the comparison, compare, contrast, to determine what's good, what's bad, what do we like, what don't we like, from our own lived experiences. And so we had a two-prong miscommunication happening. Parent couldn't understand what the kid wanted. Kid couldn't understand how to put their desires into words. So parent would sit there and say, okay, you're trying to do this. I'm giving you what you want, and now you're still upset. And the kid's like, yeah, but that's not what I actually want. And I see this in my day-to-day all the time. When you have 75 kids running around, 75 elementary schoolers in a single room, running around playing, causing havoc, the kindergartner doesn't have the words to tell the third grader what they would like to do. Third grader doesn't have the words to communicate to one of my staff members what's happening. So you have to be extra observant to see what's going on before confusion and chaos erupts, and now we have problems. And so with my specific client, we had this two-pronged misunderstanding. Parent could understand what kid wanted. Kid couldn't figure out how to put their desires into words. That is 2AT Mercury retrograde. And so the gift for that child is learning how to put that sensation into words for others. That's the biggest challenge. That's the biggest obstacle. It is also the biggest gift. Because if you are, as someone with a Mercury retrograde, if you are able to put those sensations, those ideas, those thoughts into words that someone else will be able to understand in a logical sequence that makes sense, the person with retrograde Mercury, because it has to do with analyzing information, distilling information, they see the world so differently. Their point of view is so unique. If they can communicate clearly, you get the reactions from everyone in the room like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it like that. Oh, wow, I didn't think about that. Oh my gosh, that never crossed my mind. Whoa, that's a good idea. Wow, we should definitely try that. Those are the types of reaction that the Mercury retrograde creates. It's able to bring out. And if you do communicate it clearly, it's so powerful because it has the strength of being already reworked, already revised. So what we are currently working on with this parent and child is getting, because the thing is the parents been putting their kid into speaking, communication courses, programs. They've been getting communication books, right? Because they're trying to prepare them to go off to college. and they want them to be a better communicator. The kid himself knows, I need to become a better communicator. I want to become a better communicator because I desire people understanding what I'm saying. I want to be understood by people. And so none of that has worked because that it's not solving the problem. They have all of the raw materials there. The issue is they're word vomiting, just gobbledygook and fire hosing information at people. It's not in any logical order. Internally for the kid, he has the whole map connect. This piece connects to that piece, which connects over here, which makes the whole thing roll. But when someone's seeing it for the first time, they're like, wait, there's this thing going on, and then that's happening over here. Where's this third thing? How does that even tie? So people aren't able to follow along because their retrograde is just firing information out. They're just water hosing people with information. And so creating the awareness of we don't need to gather more raw materials. You have all of the materials you need. And we don't want to now create a sterilized communication pattern because your biggest gift is the Mercury retrograde energy itself. So the last thing we want to do is create some robotic, sterilized way of communicating. All that we have to do is have the awareness that we are probably going to be misunderstood. So let's take a beat here. Let's take a breath and analyze this thought. Let's tap into that retrograde energy. Let's revisit this thought. Can we simplify it? Do we need to add this piece? Is our ego stepping in because we want to sound smarter than we are? Is that why we're adding these things that are unnecessary to the story? Like just taking a beat to examine what's necessary, what's not before we start to communicate to others. What are we trying to accomplish with these words right now? And as we've been doing this, we're only half a week in, already getting feedback. Yep, taking a beat, taking a step. What are we trying to accomplish with this statement, with this story, with this idea? And now working everything to be as streamlined as possible. Because the thing with that Mercury retrograde is more is always more, but more is not always better. So giving someone more of an inside glimpse to our mind is not what we're trying to do with the Mercury retrograde energy. We're trying to distill, synthesize everything we have going on upstairs into a logical Gunner, safe, buddy. Safe. We are trying to synthesize this down into a logical, concise, powerful statement, powerful story, powerful anecdote, powerful piece of communication that creates a reaction in another human being. And we have the power and strength to do it. We simply have to take a beat, take a step back, and allow ourselves to revisit this idea once, twice, 3 times before we start shooting it out into the public for other people to see or hear. And that process is the challenge, but that's also the biggest gift. This thing got a little bit longer than I wanted it to. It seems like every time we're coming up on 20 minutes every time I start doing one of these things. If you're still listening, I genuinely appreciate you for listening. The universe is on your side. The universe wants you to win. I also want you to win. So if you have any questions, you can always shoot me an email, tristan@realoccult.com. If you're a parent with a bunch of kids, or you're a parent with a kid and you want them to be spiritually prepared for success so that they can create multi-generational success, you guys can grow your familial wealth, pass it on to others. Check out our free community, skool.com/real occult. That's school, skool.com/real occult. completely free right now. If you have any questions, I am more than happy to help you however I can. If that's a family reading, we give family readings all day, every day. If that's a personalized reading just for yourself, or if it's just having a peek with a specific question around your child and something that they're doing. Like we've done a bunch of sport consulting. I grew up playing sports my whole life. I played hockey in college. If that's, hey, which one of these sports is better for my kid or more likely for my kid to stay on? We've had parents who, older sons, super, super huge into sports, younger son, they keep trying to force him into other sports because they said he just wants to work with his hands. And it's like, yeah, he does have to work with his hands. He's got this fifth house Leo. Like he's got all of this extroverted working energy, and it's just not an athletic endeavor. Put this kid in some artistry, and come to find out this dude, wicked painter. So we got an older child who's great at sports, a younger child who's amazing at painting, and they're going to try, their plan was to continue to force younger child into sports. It's like, that's not in his natural energetic disposition. He is not naturally inclined to sport. He is naturally inclined to using his hands and expressing himself physically. It's just not through sport. That's older son. Younger son is through art. And so if you're interested in anything like that, skool.com/real occult. Like I said, I'm more than happy to help you however I can. You can also actually check out realoccult.com. I think we have a booking page up there. If you'd like to just book a free 30-minute call, we could chop it up about whatever you desire. So if you've made it this far, I genuinely appreciate you. The universe wants you to win. I also want you to win, and I'm here to support you however you need. That's all I've got for today, and I will talk to you again soon.